way he hadn't anticipated, but still, despite the sting, he clung to the hope that this was a test, a challenge to his patience and resilience. He convinced himself that if he could just be understanding, just show her how much he cared, she would eventually see the value in him in the life they had shared. But with each cruel remark, with every dismissive glance, he found himself slipping deeper into a pit of self-loathing. Her words made him question everything he had once known about himself. He began to wonder if he was in fact nothing more than a relic of the past, someone whose age rendered him invisible, irrelevant. It was as if in her eyes he no longer had anything of value to offer, a thought that nodded him day and night. For anyone on the outside looking in, it might seem easy to criticize his decision to stay, to endure the constant humiliation, but those who I have truly enjoyed comprehending how love, despite its pain, can imprison you. It makes you look past the hurt, and sometimes you end up telling yourself that you need to change, try harder, and prove yourself worthy. Her youth wasn't the only thing binding him. The hope of proving his worth to someone who couldn't see him for who he truly was also held him back. It was a soul-crushing cycle that he couldn't seem to break out of. One night, after yet another cruel confrontation that made him feel smaller than ever, he found himself standing alone in front of the mirror and looking at the man who had once been full of life and pride. Now he saw a 70-year-old man, his face wrinkled with time. His eyes heavy with the weight of experience, he stared at his reflection, and for the first time in a long while he truly saw himself, not as she had seen him, not as an aging, flawed man, but as someone who had lived, who had... Have you ever felt like no matter how much you gave, it wasn't enough? What if the love you sacrificed only chipped away at your dignity instead of building you up? This story may hit home for you, especially if you're older and have loved someone who couldn't see past your age. In today's video, I'll tell you the true story of a man who tried to bridge a generational gap in love, but soon realized the price he was paying for his self-worth. At first, he thought he could handle the teasing and the subtle hints that he wasn't young enough, fast enough, or strong enough. But over time, the quiet jabs turned into painful reminders that his partner valued the vigor of youth over the wisdom and depth that come with age. This story isn't just about romantic problems. It's also about reclaiming your dignity, learning the value of self-love, and knowing when to say enough. If you've ever experienced rejection or abuse in a relationship, this story will resonate deeply with you. You'll see his journey towards self-respect as he learns that his worth doesn't depend on the approval of someone who only sees the surface. By the end of this video, you will not only find inspiration in his journey, but also gain 5 valuable lessons that can assist anyone navigating relationship issues in the future. These lessons remind us that peace, dignity, and self-worth are worth much more than any temporary approval. You'll learn how to manage the stress of having to prove yourself when you already know your worth. If you want to regain your self-respect, read on. Let's read this moving story. Please subscribe and turn on the notification bell to avoid missing movies. Your support is greatly appreciated, and if you find value in this video, please consider liking and sharing it. He chuckled nervously at first, telling himself it was just her way of joking, trying to lighten the mood. But the jokes kept coming, more frequent, more biting. Each one was like a small silent barb that stuck in his mind, and slowly over time the laughter became heavier, weighed down by an uncomfortable truth he tried desperately to ignore, that perhaps, just maybe, he wasn't enough for her anymore. The comments, once playful, began to chip away at the man he thought he was. Every joke seemed to carry an unspoken message, an implication that he was too old for her, too slow, too fragile. Her criticisms made him lose confidence in himself. He tried to laugh them off and move on, but her words started to stick with him more than he realized. They were like an echo in his mind, reminding him that his body no longer matched the vigor of her youth, which she saw as a flaw. Then, out of the blue, her criticisms became darker and sharper. What started out as casual comments turned into direct attacks on his masculinity, self-worth, and identity as a lover. She told him that he was slow and predictable in bed. He had always thought that emotional closeness, tenderness, and the ability to truly connect with someone were the most important parts of intimacy. But she didn't seem to care about any of that. Her harsh words pierced him deeply. She told him that he couldn't satisfy her like a younger man could, that his touch wasn't good enough, unworthy of someone as vibrant as her. His heart sank. These were not just hurtful words, they were a direct assault on everything he had come to believe about himself. He had always thought he could give her something deeper than youthful energy, something more enduring. But now, in the face of her accusations, he felt as though he had failed himself, failed them both. He tried to reason with her, to plead for her understanding, to explain that his age didn't define his ability to bring her happiness. But she wasn't listening. She had made up her mind her words were final, cutting through any attempt he made to salvage his dignity, desperate to prove that he still had something to offer. He told her that although he may not possess the strength or vitality of youth, he had learned over the years how to please her in ways that didn't require physical prowess. He had found other subtler ways to be intimate, ways that came from patience, from understanding, from knowing how to give and receive. In a deep and lasting manner, he told her that he had mastered the art of oral sex, that he knew how to draw her pleasure in a way that was unique to him, to their bond. His voice was steady but vulnerable, filled with a kind of quiet confidence that only comes from years of experience. He wasn't just offering his body, but his heart, his care, his devotion. But instead of receiving his sincerity with the respect it deserved, she mocked him. Her laughter was cruel, dismissive, as if she was somehow repulsed by his attempt to remain relevant, to prove his worth in her eyes, an old man trying to be useful. She scoffed, her disdain dry from every word. It was a slap in the face, one that left him reeling. Feeling smaller, less than her contempt, shattered him in a loved who had learned and grown, and in that moment a realization hit him like a tidal wave. Self-love had to speak louder than her cruel words, louder than any external validation he had sought for so long. He had allowed himself to be diminished by her opinions, by her rejection, but that had to stop with a deep breath. He made a decision. He was done living in the shadow of someone else's judgment. He deserved more than this. The next day he walked into her home with a calm resolve, his heart heavy but determined. He told her quietly and firmly that he could no longer continue the relationship as much as he loved her. He could not stay in a situation where he was constantly humiliated, where he was made to feel less than who he was. She was stunned, her eyes wide with disbelief. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected him to stand up for himself, to walk away from her. For a moment, he observed her confusion and surprise, and in that moment, something inside him shifted. He had regained a piece of himself, his dignity, strength, and self-respect. The conversation was painful, full of tears, regrets, and unspoken words, but it was also freeing. He felt like a man again, one whose worth was not based on other people's opinions, but on his own. It was an act of wisdom, not weakness. As he left her house, he felt a weight lift off his shoulders, a relief he hadn't felt in months. Her expectations and disdain freed him to love himself and embrace the person he had become. The days that followed were quiet and lonely, but it wasn't the depressing loneliness he had felt before. It was dignified loneliness. He spent time alone, which gave him the chance to rediscover himself and reconnect with the things that were most important to him. He reached out to old friends and rekindled relationships he had let fall apart over the years. He also embarked on trips to destinations he had long yearned to see, and he discovered new hobbies that brought him joy once more. He realized that his worth wasn't based on her or anyone else's approval, but on the life he had lived, the experiences he carried with him, and the person he was now. Every wrinkle on his face was a reminder of the life he had lived with honor and value. Regardless of the number of years or the physical changes he had undergone, he came to accept that aging wasn't something to fear, something to hide. It was something to embrace, for it brought with it wisdom, the wisdom to know what truly mattered, and in the quiet solitude of his newfound peace. He discovered that the love he had been seeking all along was the love he needed to give himself in time. He learned to cherish the essence of who he was unconditionally and without apology. He knew that true love doesn't diminish you, it elevates you. It doesn't judge you for the passage of time. It respects the person you have become. And with that understanding, he moved forward into the next chapter of his life, one where he no longer sought approval, but instead found contentment in knowing that he was enough just as he was. He had spent so many years sacrificing his happiness, his desires, and his very sense of self, all in the name of trying to please someone else. His life had become an endless cycle of compromise and self-neglect. For so long he believed that to be loved, to be seen, he needed to erase parts of himself, his dreams, his needs, his truth. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. He realized that he no longer had to bend, had to erase himself just to make someone else happy. He no longer had to keep sacrificing his sense of peace and joy. He discovered a deeply empowering truth. It was time to focus on pleasing himself, honoring his own needs. He earned it for his own morals and self-respect. This change wasn't easy, and there were problems along the way, but he knew at this point in his life that he could no longer trust others with his peace of mind, his honor, and his identity. This is especially true for older people who are dealing with similar fears and doubts about love. This story serves as a wake-up call. It is a reminder that seeking love is not only natural but essential, yet it must never come at the cost of our inner peace, our dignity, or our sense of self-worth. Time, as it inevitably marches on, brings with it lessons that can only be fully understood through experience. Only those who have lived long enough can truly grasp how it is to preserve the sanctity of one's own heart and soul, even when the world seems intent on convincing us otherwise. As he looked back, he realized that the relationship was not a failure, but a profound learning experience, one that taught him deep transformative lessons and acceptance, the importance of holding on to his values, and how to stand firm in his truth no matter what anyone else thought or said. He had become more than just a man in a relationship. He had become a man who had learned the true meaning of self-love, self-dignity, and peace. He learned that to be loved by others, he first had to love and embrace himself, every part of himself. This meant accepting his flaws, his imperfections, his aging body, and the beautiful wisdom that had come with every wrinkle, every grey hair. It meant understanding that the essence of who he was, his kindness, his intelligence, his strength, was worth loving, even if he wasn't perfect by society's fleeting standards. He chose to walk away from a negative relationship because it hurt him. It was also an act of reclaiming himself, of choosing peace over toxic love, and of setting boundaries that were beneficial for his soul. This story is a powerful reminder that self-love is not just a desirable idea, it's necessary. And sometimes the most loving thing we can do for ourselves is to walk away from situations that make us feel less important. This story isn't just for young or middle-aged people. It's for people who have lived long enough to understand the complexities of time, love, and self-worth. we should never compromise our priceless dignity for anyone or anything. Deep reflection and healing taught him that the true measure of a man's worth is not his age or physical strength, but rather his honesty in addressing life's challenges. It's honesty that lets him walk through life with grace, getting back up after every fall and staying true to his values, even when the world tells him to do something different. True character turns every wrinkle into a badge of knowledge and every grey hair into a sign of power and survival. There's more to his story than just love and relationships. It's about embracing your true self and persevering in the pursuit of what truly matters: peace, respect, and honesty. Pride in oneself. He hopes that by sharing his story, he can impart 5 crucial lessons, particularly beneficial for older individuals grappling with relationship challenges throughout their lives. Life's many events give people the hard-won wisdom that these lessons are based on. They are essential for anyone in their later years who is trying to find love and themselves in a turbulent time. The first lesson is hard but necessary. No matter how appealing it is to relive the spark of youth with someone younger, we must stay true to who we are. Many people in their later years find themselves, like the main character of the story, focusing all of their time and energy on things that don't matter. People who fall into relationships that don't value them for who they are become obsessed with proving their vitality and reliving youth, allowing themselves to be mistreated and disrespected. The need to prove one's worth can become a trap, and it often leads to accepting emotional neglect or humiliations that would have been unacceptable at any other time in life. True love should never be a test of endurance or a way to show where you were born. It should be a safe place where people can respect, understand, and value each other as equals. The second lesson is a crucial one. The importance of self-love cannot be overstated in his case, tolerating cruel comments about his age, his performance and his physical limitations. Thinking that he had to endure this kind of disrespect in the name of love was slowly eroding his self-worth. He had convinced himself that suffering in silence was noble, that enduring the pain and humiliation of criticism was part of what it meant to love. But in reality, he was losing something far more precious: his dignity, his sense of self, and his peace. Loving yourself is not a mere indulgence or a fleeting feeling. It is a fundamental commitment to your well-being. When we forget our worth, when we stop seeing ourselves as deserving of kindness, as in respect, we become vulnerable to the disregard of others. And it is only when we learn to honor ourselves that we can truly build healthy, fulfilling relationships based on mutual love and respect. The third lesson is about having the courage to say enough. It takes a lot of courage to face solitude, even if it's only for a short time, and see it not as a punishment, but as a place to heal, reflect, and rebuild. When he left the toxic relationship, he wasn't just walking away from someone else. He was walking towards a better version of himself. He chose the harder but infinitely more honorable path of embracing solitude instead of continuing to endure emotional neglect. In that solitude, he found a quiet peace that no one could take away, a peace that restored his soul. Sometimes solitude isn't a punishment. It's a sacred space where we can rediscover who we are and rebuild our strength. The fourth lesson is about how important our memories are. As we get older, our bodies may slow down, but the knowledge we've gained over the years is like gold. Every wrinkle, every grey hair, and every scar is a reminder of a fight. In his case, he understood that he didn't have to change to fit some unrealistic ideal of youth and beauty. He had something much more valuable: experiences, lessons, and knowledge that no one could ever take away from him. People who are only interested in looks will never understand how rich a life fully lived is. He learned the hard way that it wasn't worth it to try to please people who couldn't see the beauty, depth, wisdom, and love in his eyes. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons helpful, please leave a comment below to let me know you are still with me. The fifth lesson is about love at its core. Women who care about their partner's happiness and show care, tenderness, and affection in ways that go beyond physical performance are often the most generous in relationships. Even though he didn't have the vigor of youth, he learned that love and affection don't have to be defined by physical vitality. Show his love in sweet ways, like with small acts of kindness, thoughtful words, and loving actions, but remember that respect is the basis of everything. Giving love and pleasure to a partner should never be a duty or a way to be embarrassed. It should be an act of affection and a shared bond between two people who respect each other's needs and wants. In the end, this story isn't just about one person's journey. It's also a powerful reminder of how important it is to respect yourself, live an honest life, and understand the deep value of love, both the love we give and the love we allow ourselves to receive. It's a reminder that everyone, no matter what age, is worthy of love, dignity, and peace, and that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to leave relationships that no longer serve us and embrace the freedom that comes with reclaiming ourselves. As we end this story, let's take a moment to really take in what it says about the journey of love, self-worth, and dignity. We walked with a man who did everything he could in the hopes that his love and care would help Aggie get past her fears and doubts, but he learned a crucial lesson in the end. Real love isn't about proving yourself to other people. It's about recognizing your own worth and refusing to give up your peace or dignity to meet someone else's temporary needs. So, what has this story taught you? Perhaps it's the power of self-respect, the importance of leaving a relationship that doesn't make you feel good, or perhaps it's that love that respects your values and fully embraces you, regardless of your age. Every lesson on this trip has taught me how to be brave enough to protect my worth, even if it means facing the unknown. I'd love to hear your thoughts and reflections. What is one thing you will take from this story and use in your own life? Is there a way you've been undervaluing yourself, or a limit you now know you need to set? Share one insight you'll use that you think will really make a difference. Your words not only motivate other people, but they're also a strong step toward personal growth and change. Feel free to share your thoughts below if this video spoke to you. If you found value in this message, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let's keep these conversations going and bring wisdom, dignity, and self-love to every step of our journey. We appreciate your time and look forward to hearing how this story affected you.